Good evening, everybody. Thank you for meeting us for the O&A meeting for August 2nd, 2021. All votes must be by roll call. Consistent with Chapter 20 of Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not be physically attend this meeting. By every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. If you're calling on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer, a device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap to request speak, or please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. So up first, we have boards and committees. Do we have Gerald Oppenheim? I see him.
1 second. Yeah, he is here. Let me bring him in. Oh, he is in. All right. Sir, you're good.
Great.
How are you doing tonight, Gerald?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad. You just want to tell us a little bit about what's going on with the EDIC and how things are going?
Well, they were going great until about a year and a half ago, as you can imagine. My almost 3-year term is almost equally divided into pre-COVID and post-COVID. So pre-COVID, it was really a period of re-engineering, resetting the policy, figuring out exactly how we wanted to proceed, given that we're not building anything, but we still wanted to do things to support the economy of the two parks. So we did a couple of things in that year and a half. One is to come to a consensus about what our mission should be. And as you probably know, on the seat I am in is for someone who represents low-income people, since I do a lot of work with community action agencies across the state, but in a network that's led by Action Inc. here in Gloucester. So, I suggested that some of the things that would be important to low-income people would also be important for job creation, job retention, things like job training, workforce development, workforce housing, and transportation. So the getting to the parks from the railroad stations, for example. And I, in addition to that, have particular experience in the energy field. The low-income, the Community Action Program network that I work with actually installs weatherization and other energy efficiency measures all across the state, including here in Gloucester. So I've learned a lot about that work and also about that how that could apply to folks in the not just the employees of the folks, but the folks themselves in the industrial parks. Energy efficiency is a economic no-brainer, especially since the utilities are actually investing in it. So that brings the cost down. And there are additional opportunities for things like electric vehicle charging stations, and for technologies that can mitigate some of the outage issues that have plagued all of Gloucester, but including the parks. And finally, we also set as an object to look at is telecommunications, extending broadband, more broadband than is here. So that's a pretty good description, I think, of our mission. And then, of course, COVID hit. So one of the principal things that I took on was the energy efficiency portfolio, I guess you would call it. And there really hasn't been much appetite, as you can imagine, to focus on that when a lot of the buildings were empty or nearly empty for a lot of the time. And when they weren't or aren't, there's just getting operations up and running on anything like a normal level has been a challenge for folks. So we did, just before COVID hit, we did make an arrangement with National Grid to let folks know what the services are. It's sort of an education program. We managed to get one meeting in, which was a meeting that combined some teachings, I guess, about energy efficiency and the opportunities that National Grid has for folks in the park. And at the same time, we had also done, and this was the other major thing that we did in that first year and a half or so, we also commissioned a group at UMass to assess the needs of the park, to give us some idea of both parks, I should say, and to give us some idea of what we ought to be focusing in on from the points of view of the occupants of the parks. They did a very thorough job, and we obviously fed them our views, and they then conducted a very thorough survey. And actually, one of the principal things, I think was the principle, that the highest concern expressed, I think, was the frustration over the sometimes unreliable nature of the electric power supply, both momentaries, which are sort of those instant periods when the lights go out just long enough so that you have to reset every clock in your house, and the longer duration outages. And those require two different kinds of technological solutions. And they are of more or less importance depending on the operations. But, operations that are very heavily computerized, like manufacturing, those momentaries can be extremely expensive. And as a result, an outfit like Applied Materials, for example, has already got uninterruptible power supplies in place. But for other smaller enterprises, that is something they more or less have to live with, and we were beginning to look at how the National Grid would help companies install the kinds of technologies, basically with batteries, would be a big one, in order to solve that problem. So that's sort of where where everything stopped. And we've been in a bit of a holding pattern. I mean, the one other thing that my colleague Mike Delasio did manage to do is during the pandemic is to get the last link CADA shuttle from the train stations to be up and running with some support from some of the occupants of the park, which he worked to arrange. But short of that, I mean, we really, there've been little things here and there, but basically we're in a holding pattern, which I hope we're about to come out of, but who knows?
Excellent. Gerald, thank you very much. Before I go to council questions or comment, I do want to recognize that we do have Sherry Carvelis, our clerk committees, Council President Steve LeBlanc, Council at Large O'Hara, our City Attorney Chip Payson, our City Police Chief Ed Conley, and also on this call we have Melissa Textera, Prince from the school committee and the licensing board. Is there any questions or comments for Gerald at this time?
Thank you, Gerald, for your energy and interest to keep the EDC operational. We appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Same here, Jerry. Keep up the good work, pal. We appreciate everything you do.
Great. Thank you very much.
Jerry, you guys have done a ton on the EDIC. It's come a long way with modern technology. It's always been a strong board, but you guys have brought light to the future and things that we're looking for and working with the community. I really appreciate that. With that, do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. Ordinance Administration would like to recommend to the City Council to appoint Gerald Oppenheim to the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation, term to expire 6/30/24, and I so move.
Second.
All right, and this will be by roll call, and I'll start with Councilor LeBlanc.
100% yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan, absolutely. Gerald, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. This is a reappointment. You don't need to come before us again on Tuesday, and we've already heard that you've done your oath and your testing. So thank you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Excellent. So next we have a memorandum from the mayor regarding license of board, BYOB regulations and local businesses. And with that being said, I'd like to start with Chip Payson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Just give a brief background here. So over the past several months, the chairwoman of the licensing board, President LeBlanc, and I have had a series of conversations about BYOB issues, bring your own bottle, and possibly drafting an ordinance. And the reason why that is because the law as it currently stands is if there is no BYOB ordinance, then the presumption is that BYOB is legal. And this raises a number of concerns, most specifically that if that's the presumption, then there's no rules or regulations behind it, let alone whether Gloucester and its licensing board, city council, and mayor have decided that BYOB should even be legal. So the early sense from the chair of the licensing board and her colleagues was that BYOB should be legal, but only under certain circumstances with certain approvals. So the licensing board had me do some research on what some of the other communities have done. I looked at Boston, Springfield, Amherst, Weston, and Greenfield, all which had fairly comprehensive BYOB procedures and regulations. And I compiled a list of issues and questions and met with the licensing board and offered some of this information up. I think back in April, the licensing board had a long conversation and debate about, based on what the draft or what the ordinances in some of these other communities were, what they thought would be appropriate for Gloucester and what they wanted to discard and didn't want to include. So based on that, I drafted a comprehensive ordinance and provided that to the licensing board. They reviewed it, made a couple of slight changes, and that's what's before you now. The licensing board chair, the police chief, and I are here. I don't know if you want me to go through this ordinance or if you want to ask questions. Whatever you'd like to do is up to you. I'm available.
Chip, with Councilor LeBlanc.
Yeah, I have I read through the whole thing. It's extensive. It makes sense. I just need a clarification on one thing because I've never heard this before. Alcoholic beverages are liquids intended for human consumption as a beverage which contain 1/2 of 1% or more of alcohol by volume at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, including malt beverages. What the heck does that mean?
That's in the definition section, right? So
that's booze. That's just basically anything, right? Like a seltzer or a beer or.
Yeah, it can be.
Wow.
I mean, but the idea here is to get an ordinance drafted that is all encompassing. and you can't wiggle your way out of it with this drink or that liquid. So what the other communities have done is used a fairly comprehensive definition of what some of these things are, and it is a little humorous, but you want to cast a wide and secure net so that people can't slip through this and make excuses. So yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so yeah, I read the whole thing. It's extensive, but it makes sense. That's all I got.
Councilor O'Hara, do you have any questions before we go to Police Chief Conley?
No, I agree with Councilor Blank. It is something that is extremely extensive and probably a necessity. Thank you.
Excellent. Police Chief Conley, do you have any questions, or would you like to add to the comments?
I don't have any questions. I'm certainly here to answer any you may have. I would just, thank the extensive work that Attorney Payton did and the Licensing Commission has done on this. It's, we've all seen it. It's comprehensive, and when things are comprehensive and well defined like that, it's easier for us to enforce, and certainly easy for the licensing board to take action on. So I appreciate that. There was a lot of work that went into this, no doubt.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed. If Melissa would like to chime in as the licensing committee. Oh, sorry, Councilor Blank.
No, I'll ask questions. I got a couple more after this. Go ahead, Melissa. Do the chair.
Good evening, and thank you for reviewing this potential ordinance tonight. It's been a long time in the making. We actually started talking about it, I believe it was in August of 2019 when we had a meeting at City Hall when I first became chair of the licensing board, and this was one of the topics of discussion about the concerns in the community of not having any regulation on BYOB. So I appreciate tremendous work that Chip Payson has done and the advocacy and the concerns addressed by the Gloucester Police Department. We had Joseph Fitzgerald, who Assistant Chief, and also Sergeant Connors involved in the conversation as we drafted this as well. It was a long conversation. I sent you a copy of the minutes. I did send you all a copy of the minutes of May 18th because I incorrectly stated that the board approved this for review by you in April when it was actually the vote was taken in May. So I'm not sure if you saw those minutes, but I just sent them out to you now in case you had any questions on when that vote was actually taken, because the April minutes that I said would state that the BYOB was allowed by our board was incorrect. It was actually May 18th.
Thank you, Melissa. Councilor Blank.
So how are we going about licensing? I mean, not the licensing process. I understand that you put in the application, it gets reviewed. How are we going to get this out to the public to let people know? I've been in restaurants that haven't served alcohol that I've brought my own beer in many times. I don't want them to be like, well, I've been doing it for 40 something years. I shouldn't have to get a permit or whatever. How are we going to reach out to those people and let them know that, is it going to be a blanket statement in the paper, or is it going to be, to small businesses? And then what about when somebody has I don't want to say like a yoga class where they bring, say they have an arts and crafts, building a wreath for Christmas, or building a flower basket at the flower shop, and they say, yo, you can bring your own booze to this thing tonight. How are we going to go about, is there a day license that these people can get, or is that permittable? I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Well, Melissa knows because she sees some of these things that go on in town.
Yeah, I can answer that. So to go to your first question, we haven't thought it through that far as how we're going to notify everyone, but I would imagine that we will construct a list of all the restaurants in Gloucester that do not currently have a license. And just keep in mind, we have approximately 60 licenses in our city now. So there's not many that don't have a license, there's more that do. So we'll have to develop a list of those that don't have a license and then send them out a notice informing them of this new regulation. So that they can contact us. We actually have to develop the application process still too. We're just waiting to see if this gets approval by City Council. So in that case, that's what we will do for the outreach, hopefully to work with the Gloucester Daily Times, whatever way we can get out there. We're going to put it on our website, maybe the city website somewhere other than the licensing board. I'm not quite sure yet, but we will work to develop the best practices to get this information out to the whole community as a whole. Because the public needs to know about this, not just the businesses,
Right.
so that they know how much alcohol they can bring in and things like that. Because as you said, our ordinance is very detailed.
Right.
Intentionally, so that there's a lot of structure for the enforcement piece.
Right. And what, kind,
as-
and what kind is allowed too, because when we're not allowed
Exactly.
liquor, right?
Yeah, we decided just beer and wine, not hard alcohol, for good reason, which is consistent with what other communities do too. The time frame isn't the same as if you could buy a drink at a restaurant. It's a little bit shorter. Ending, I think it's 9:30. I'm not sure, but somewhere around there. But as far as your other question about the
Like the
holiday
pallet-
issues.
Yeah, the palette paint, you know what people go to the palette classes?
I
and
do.
they paint- yeah.
Yep. So first know that this ordinance requires, if you're going to have BYOB, it requires that you have a common victual license, which means that you're serving food. There's seating in a place and you're serving food. If you're not serving food, you cannot have BYOB. But the issues that you're talking about, the different events, those would be one-day license events. So anybody who wants to have some sort of gathering or fun event and be able to have beer and wine available, they can apply for a one-day license. And our board is very flexible to address those requests. I mean, I know we only meet once a month, but we usually gather together really quickly. If at the last minute someone realizes they need a license, we're happy to accommodate those requests.
Right. So I understand. I agree with that part. Like if we were having an event up at Stage 4 Park for one day, or we were having something downtown or something in the neighborhood, I understand that. But like I said, like the palette painting classes. I mean, are we going to be cracking down on, you know, my wife wants to host, you know, I'm just going to use my family as an example. My wife
Only
wants
if
to
I'm
host-
invited.
Yeah, she wants to have a palette painting class
Yep.
at some hall. Say the fraternity club. We have it for a night or what? I mean, I know they have their own. That's just hypothetical. Or someplace that doesn't serve. And she says to her girlfriends, "Oh, you guys can bring," or everybody brings a bottle of wine. Or what are we doing with that? Is that? I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds and kind of narrow things down, but I don't want to. You know, I don't want to chastise people for gathering also.
Right. So I'm going to tell you that I am not the enforcer. I don't go seeking out people in Gloucester where they're drinking and looking at my list to see if they have a license or not. That's not how the licensing board operates. We usually reactive. In the police department, every police officer is an agent of the licensing board, so they can enforce any concerns and then inform us afterwards if there was a concern. So know that when you pour, the law states when you pour alcohol, you don't have to sell it, but even if you pour it and it's a place open to the public, a license is required.
Okay.
And that's always been the case. So this BYOB is not changing anything. It's just a matter of enforcement. So I know I'm not going out looking for any events that have done anything illegally. And I don't know that the police are as well, but the law is the law, and this BYOB does not change the law on that type of topic. It has been questioned in the city when we have the holiday, when you have ladies' night downtown, how that's handled. That's always been put to me as a question, and I don't get involved until there's an issue. You know, I mean, the law says if you're in a public place and you're pouring alcohol to the public, a one-day license is required. How the city moves forward on that, that is up to the leaders of the city. You know, I'm not looking to stop anyone from doing anything. All we're trying to do is just manage the service of alcohol in our community. As you know, I work in the courthouse and I'm in court a lot when we have drinking and driving cases and accidents and people get hurt or things like that. And they're always asking, where did you have your last drink? You know, so I think the BYOB regulation brings in a regulation that the city is able to manage the public safety and know what businesses are doing what and how. And I mean, for instance, right now, there's a restaurant that does BYOB, but when you go there, has that person been tip certified? Do they know the signs of someone who's overserved? So this regulation isn't to hurt anyone. It's more or less of a public safety issue to control the concerns that come with drinking.
So it's geared more toward me going to a restaurant and sitting down. Okay. That's fine.
Exactly.
Gotcha. You know me, I ask questions. This is
No,
what
and
do.
I appreciate the conversation. I love conversations, and I love conversations even more when I don't agree with people because I learned something from it. So I'm okay.
All right, awesome.
Councilor Hara, do you have any questions?
Oh, thank you for the research.
All righty. So I believe questions have been asked and answered. I've been through this report. I think it brings personal responsibility and business responsibility together at the same time. It only makes sense to bring our ordinances up to where they should be for safety standards. So with that being said, do we have a motion?
Yes, sir, we do. And without any objection, I would like to waive the several pages of the reading after the motion. So
Moved.
Ordinance and Administration would like to recommend to the City Council to amend the Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Section 14-11, reserved by adding a new Section 14-11. Bring your own bottle as follows, and move to waive the reading.
Second.
All right. All right.
All right, so by roll call vote, we're looking to pass the motion and waive the reading. Do we need to do this in two separate votes or just one?
Why don't we just move to wait? Why don't we go waive the reading first, and then we'll vote it in, so that way it's cleaner.
All right.
So,
So I am gonna ask for a vote to
waive the reading.
waive the reading, and
Yeah.
it'll be by roll call, and I'll start with Councilor Blank.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan, yes. So that passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. And next would be for the motion. And on the motion, roll call, Councilor Blank,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan, yes. Melissa, Chip, Ed, and Steve, thank you for your work on this. It's
Excellent job.
very clean and concise.
Thank you.
Great job, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks to all. We do good things in groups. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So next would be number 3, which is Special City Council 2021-15 PET amend GCO Chapter 22, Section 22-270, parking prohibited at all times, Section 22-291 tollway zones regarding Prospect Square. Is Councilor Pat with us tonight?
He is not,
All right.
and I haven't heard from him. I think he would have reached out to one of us if this wasn't a go, so why don't we vote it up to council, and then we can figure it out up there. I'm sure it's been better, the traffic and everything else.
I'm all for that. So do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. Ordinance Administration would like to recommend to the City Council to amend the Gloucester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Section 22-270, parking prohibited at all times, and Section 22-291, tollway zones in regards to Prospect Square as follows. Amend Section 22-270, parking prohibited at all times, by deleting Prospect Square left side for its entire length, Prospect Square westerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 198 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street, and a southerly direction for a distance of 20 feet. Prospect Square westerly side, right side, beginning at a point 228 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street, and a southerly direction for a distance of 20 feet. And by adding Prospect Square, the left side, in the direction of travel for its entire length, Prospect Square westerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 198 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street and a southerly direction for a distance of 68 feet. Prospect Square southerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 266 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street for a distance of 54 feet. Prospect Square southerly side, right side, beginning at a point of 368 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street for a distance of 70 feet in an easterly direction. Prospect Square easterly side, right side, beginning at a point of 462 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street at a distance of 40 feet. And amend section 22-291 towaway zones by deleting Prospect Square westerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 228 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street in a southerly direction for a distance of 20 feet. Prospect Square westerly side, right side, beginning at a point of 378 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street in a distance of 60 feet in an easterly direction. Prospect Square westerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 198 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street in a southerly direction for a distance of 20 feet. And by adding Prospect Square, the left side in the direction of travel for its entire length. Prospect Square southerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 368 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street for a distance of 70 feet in an easterly direction. And Prospect Square westerly side, the right side, beginning at a point of 198 feet from its intersection with Prospect Street in a southerly direction for a distance of 68 feet, and I so move.
Second.
All right.
All righty. And that was a great job, Steve.
Thank you.
This will be by roll call. We'll start with Council LeBlanc,
Yes.
Council O'Hara,
Yes.
Council Nolan, yes. The motion passes 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next up, we have number 4, CC 2020-03, request review the charter pursuant to section 10-1B continued from 7/19/21. And I'm going to defer to Council LeBlanc.
All right. Eventually, we're gonna have to stop kicking the can down the road, folks. Getting volunteers to do this. We did have a few volunteers. Some of them have taken out papers for council. Some of them have withdrawn. I think we need to delegate sections of this to each one of us, the 3 of us, and kind of have at it. And it's not so much a review of the charter, it's just kind of looking at language as to, he or she, or, little words that are obsolete or that are irrelevant in our charter. So I don't think it's that much work. I had Joanne send it out to us last week, so we do have a updated copy of it. So I think at some point, we got to get down to the nitty gritty. I don't really want to, there's going to be several new counselors next year, regardless of who stays and who goes. I just don't think it's fair to kick this can that far down the road and put it on the hands of the new council, seeing that there are so many councilors that are going to be green, and to jump into the council with both feet with the ground running, and then have to worry about this also. It's just an extra burden that I think O&A should take a stab at. So that's just my
I
opinion.
think you're right. Maybe we can divide it up into thirds. It can be by alphabetical. 1/3 going to Council Blank, the second third to O'Hara, and the third to myself, and we can pick through it and then come back and meet over the he, she.
Yeah,
And
it's just verbiage.
right.
And then what we can do is, once it comes back to us, we can vote. We'll send it to our general counsel. They'll take a look at it. They'll bump it back to us after they've reviewed it. And then we'll recommend it to go up to the city council. Like I said, we're in August, so we only got a few months. And I think it's doable for the 3 of us to, maybe take an hour here and there out of our night and just kind of like scan through it and look for the little trigger words that are no longer, that are obsolete, or maybe change, he or she to however we're going to ask to word it. So We're
All
gonna
right,
have to-
so I think that we should work on that as a committee and definitely start going forward, maybe revisit this in a month and bring forward our suggestions to put forward to Chip Basin.
Yeah, we can do that. Sherry, you want to put this on for a month from today? And as Sean said, we'll kind of digest a third each or as much of the third as we can go through in the month. It doesn't have to be, but then what we have after that first month, we can send that to general counsel. It might be easier to do that in sections, have a next month's meeting, we'll do, whatever we got. And then come October, we'll do another section, or we'll send that section. And so by the end of the year, we should be able to have it all, because I think it's unfair to the general counsel if we send the whole ball of wax to them at once. So maybe we'll send that to them in sections.
The meeting in a month is Labor Day, which is a holiday. So the next ONA meeting would be September 20th,
So be it.
6 weeks.
I'm all right with that.
That'll give us enough time to at least get a chunk done, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry.
Welcome.
The next is number 5, or the ordinance to review and discuss the temporary relief granted to businesses and outdoor seating during the state of emergency regarding the extension of the seasonal liquor license and possible action continued from 7/19/21. And again, we're going to defer this to Councilor LeBlanc.
All right. I thought Chip may have stuck around for this one, but he didn't. No big deal. I'd still like to, I did discuss with him briefly last week about some of this stuff. Things are still changing. And so if we can just continue this one out to the next ONA, I don't want to take it off the agenda just yet without making sure that everybody's covered under these extensions that have been granted. So if we can just, I'll figure out by Chip, we got a nice little chunk of time here before we have our next meeting. And maybe Sean, seeing that our ONA meeting's not till the end of next month, we might want to plan a special one just in case.
I have no problem doing a special meeting.
Yeah, that way we don't get bombarded.
on this
Okay.
And come up with a date and time where we can make this work. Obviously, these regulations are changing daily.
Yeah.
Federally and regionally, so we do need to keep apprised of the situation.
Yeah, but we can bump this one back because this isn't a priority because there have been extensions granted. But maybe leave a date open for a special meeting just in case anything else comes up, because I think at the end of September, Sherry, what you say, 6 weeks?
Well, you have a meeting on August 16th.
Oh, okay. Oh,
You
that's
do
right.
have another August meeting, but a month from now, that meeting is the holiday.
All right, so why don't we continue this one to the next meeting?
Okay, also,
Yeah.
Councilor Blank, Melissa, Sarah Prince's hand is up to speak.
Oh. All right. And Melissa,
Hi, thank you. So I was just listening to the conversation. I hung on for this because I saw it involved the alcohol licenses. So I just want to have a good understanding of what it is that's actually being discussed. But that was my understanding that the extension of premises were through November right now.
right.
Am I incorrect?
When I put this in, the governor changed everything that day. Or when it came to council on the consent agenda, Governor Baker had changed everything that day. I know
Okay.
things change. I just want to make sure that if we can do something as a city to extend this beyond the extension. I mean, I know COVID hit and a lot of these businesses have really, really struggled. It'd be a shame to take away the outdoor seating and the outdoor sales of liquor and whatnot too soon. So my concern is that the deadline is going to approach, and I want to be prepared that we as a city can say, you know what, we're being proactive. We're going to allow, if you come to the city and ask for permission, we'll be able to allow you to have the outdoor seating still, the alcohol consumption outside and whatnot to keep your businesses. Not only does it give them extra seating when they're outside, But it gives, people can go downtown, sit outside and not be jam-packed in a restaurant, especially with some of the things that are going on now. Numbers are going up. We might need the outdoor seating still. And I just want to be proactive just in case something happens. And we've got it on the table that we can once we decide what we're going to do at Ordinance Administration, and obviously the city council will vote for it, then businesses know that they can come to us for an extension of the extension as a city and not have to worry about governor's orders saying, you know what, we're going to take all that back. We as a city will be prepared to say, we can help still.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to be clear too, is it my understanding that did I hear correctly that you said maybe extend the seasonal licenses again, like that was done last year, so that they go year round, or did I hear that inappropriately?
Not so much that
Okay.
extension. That'll be up to you guys. Well, that can be a discussion when we have at the next meeting too.
Yeah, that was actually a home rule petition. So I only ask these questions just so if I'm asked them on the licensing board, that's all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thank you for the clarification.
No, it's a good question. Yeah, whatever we can do to help these people. I don't think the extension so much right now because things are opening, but the outdoor seating and the consumption of alcohol outdoors is more of that's what I'm gearing more toward.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
Because once the seasonal liquor licenses stop, it's freezing out. Nobody wants to sit outside anyway.
Yeah, that's January, so
Yeah.
January 15th.
Right. Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Melissa.
Excellent. So thank everybody for coming tonight. I believe that's the end of our meeting, and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. And I'll start with Council LeBlanc.
I'll move it first. We get a second?
Second.
All right, there we go. Yes,
All in favor?
yes.
Council LeBlanc, yes. Council O'Hara?
Yes.
Council Nolan, yes. Everybody have a great night.
All right,
Uh,
Sean,
take
good
care.
meeting.
Good night.
Guys.
Bye-bye.